Okay, the broadcast is now live. So we are very excited to be at Life on Purpose Live. We have author, we have a very skilled communicator, a very skilled businessman, also a very mature Christian. He's been involved in Brownsbridge Church for years. We have Dick Biggs with us. Dick, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Beth, for the kind words. I appreciate it. We go back about 20 years, don't we?
We do go back about 20 years. And I remember when we were in the same world together, you were working on your first book, Burn Brightly Without Burning Out. And you have since published 6 books. And we're going to get to that. But let's start with, let's just kind of go with leadership, because leadership is a really big issue. And yes, you're a great leader and you teach leadership across the country and have for years. You're started with the Marine Corps. So what did you learn and how has that played out in your business life and career over the years?
Well, it's interesting. The Marine Corps teaches leadership to everyone. And if you think about it, there's a reason for that. If you're in combat and your platoon leader gets killed, your lieutenant, your senior sergeant gets killed, there's no time to learn leadership. You've got to be able to lead right then. Mm-hmm. And so everybody's trained in leadership. And then you think about the other world, the business world or the church world. They all have leaders, and yet nobody's being shot or killed, but people leave, people die, people get sick, people retire. And so everybody should be prepared to lead. Now, you can't have everybody leading, mm-hmm, but there are times when you have to be a leader. You're a leader in your home if you've got kids. You're a leader if you're a coach for a baseball team. So leadership skills are always good to have.
Well, when I grew up, I didn't get to go to college like a lot of people did. And some of the things that I learned on the job training were to have a great attitude, to have a great work ethic, and to stick with my job. So what is it that you would say about consistency and building a resume as part of your plan for success? Not job hopping, but learning what you can where you're at.
Well, I had an old sales manager one time, Beth. He said, the best job you can have is to go back and do the job you're doing. And I never forgot that. So let's say you've got a kid in high school and he's cooking hamburgers at McDonald's. Mm-hmm. And he shows up on time. He's a good worker. He's disciplined. He does everything just perfectly. I guarantee you could give that kid a triple raise in salary and send him to another company, and he's still going to take those good habits with him. And he would take those bad habits with him. Mm-hmm. So you should be good at what you do, no matter where you're at, no matter how much you're being paid. Excellence is just something we all should strive for. Do your best.
Do your best in any situation. And I find that to be not as common today as it once was, because now there's the environment of, you see more job hopping than you once did. And so do you see that in the corporate world today, where you don't see as much longevity as there once was?
Oh, absolutely. Our son-in-law is a good guy. He's very good at technology. He's probably had 7 jobs in the time we've known him, which is 25 years since he married Tara. Mm-hmm. And it's not because he's a job hopper. He gets downsized, or the company goes out of business or something. So yeah, it's much more common. When I grew up in the 50s, if you were a job hopper or you were divorced, that was 2 of the worst stigmas you could have.
Mm-hmm. And nowadays, both are so common that you really have to go on attitude, performance, and things like that, which kind of leads into mentoring. That's another thing that you've been really great at, and it started with your little first grader. Let's tell that story, and then let's share what you learned from that example.
Well, it's a good example of doing something because you want to do it and because you want to help somebody, but then it can lead to other opportunities, and I'll explain that. I kept hearing in my community how they needed mentors in the school, particularly male mentors. It seemed like the women were willing to do it, but not the men. So I went to the training session, met a minister there who was retired, and he was mentoring 4 people. So I figured if he could do 4 at one time, I could do 1. So they called me from a school 10 minutes from my house. I'll never forget it. She said, Scotty Cole's a sweet little kid, but he just flunked the first grade and he lacks confidence. Well, hey, if I can help people with anything, it's confidence. I'm an old Marine. So I sat down with Scotty and we set goals every year. We would set goals in his personal life, 3 of them, 3 at school, and then I would monitor it. Well, I thought it would just be a 1-year relationship, Beth. I mentored that kid from the first grade all the way through his high school graduation. And we never talked about studies other than just do good in the classroom, but I did in tutoring. What I talked to him about was staying out of trouble by surrounding yourself with the right people, because the people that influence you are going to affect your decisions and your behavior. And that kid today is married, got his first kid, he's got a job, he's never been in trouble. And I look back on that and I think, because he came from a terrible background. There was alcohol and drugs, and he lived out in a double wide out in the middle of the woods. He was not in a good learning environment, but it just shows what a difference you can make in a kid, regardless of where he comes from. And so that was probably what that led to, was me doing 2 mentor programs in corporate America where I got paid. I didn't get paid a dime to mentor Scotty, and wouldn't have accepted it if they'd offered it.
Well, how important is it in that environment and also the corporate world to sit with someone and listen eyeball to eyeball and hear what they're actually saying?
It's huge. I always define mentoring, Beth, as one-on-one leadership. And what I mean by that is you've got a mentor that's more experienced with a protege who's less experienced. So it's leadership, but it's one-on-one. It's not like the president of a big company where he's leading a giant operation. Obviously, he can't mentor every employee. And so what you want to do is you want to surround yourself with people that have been down the road before and have the wisdom experience that can keep you from making the same mistakes that they made. Especially if you learn from your mistakes. If you don't learn from your mistakes, the Bible would call you a fool. I think in Proverbs it talks about that.
Right.
So you have to learn from your mistakes, and who better to learn than people? And today, my oldest mentor, Beth, Jack McDowell, is 89 years old, and he's still mentoring probably 20 people much younger than him.
Wow.
Yet a lot of people will not do it because they don't want to be held accountable.
Well, and we've got this society where people are so technologically driven, but that key relationship, or those key relationships in your life where you sit with someone, and sometimes that can happen on a phone, but when you sit with someone and you listen and you hear what they're saying, I think we need that in today's world more than ever, because we're feeling less and less connected to the people around us because of, our phones so often.
That's right. You need to find people, and I say it's a two-way street. I have Jack McDowell as my mentor now. I had Michael Guido down in South Georgia, my mentor for 20 years, and he passed away. He was still mentoring me at 94. But they both would always say, don't just be a protege, be a mentor. So I still mentor people. My biggest client for 29 years has been State Farm. I do customized leadership and mentoring with their 19,000 agents. And I've mentored many of these agents, and these are very successful small business people. They have 15, 20, 25 employees. And the reason they're so good is they're always seeking out other people with more experience to help them grow and get better.
Which leads to training and team building. You're a trainer and you've done a lot of training, but that environment where learning is a constant thing and you're building teams built on trust, that again is critical in today's environment, because you do have less longevity on jobs. So what are the key elements of being on a team, being a team leader, and creating that environment where people can thrive together as one organization?
It's a good question. I do a program called How Do You Spell Teamwork? And the word teamwork is capitalized except for 2 letters, the E and the M. And I always say little me, big team. Little me, big team. And the number one concept of team is to get the ego out of the way. Everyone has an ego. I mean, you'd be lying to say you don't. But when it's an excessive ego, I always say excessive ego stands for esteem gone overboard. Thinking too highly of yourself. And the thing about leaders is if they build a team and give their team credit, they'll more than get the credit back. Get yourself out of the way. John Maxwell, who was also one of my mentors, you know about John, he's very well-known leadership thing. He used to say the number one goal of a leader is to create other leaders. And you do that when they're team members while you have them under your, I hate to use the word authority, but while they're working with you, so that they can go out and lead again. And so the key elements of teamwork are just basic things. The right attitude, a willingness to do whatever it takes for the sake of the team, not worried about who gets the credit. They used to say Mr. Woodruff at Coca-Cola had a sign on his desk. It's amazing what can happen if no one worries about who gets the credit. And I think that's very true when it comes to teams. And of course, the Marine Corps, everything's about teamwork. Nothing happens. You take one Marine out there, he's not going to do a very good job. But you bring in a regiment of Marines, they're going to do some damage. And so it's all about the team. And if you can't embrace teamwork and you're in the marketplace, you're going to have a hard time.
And how has that changed at all in a church or a ministry environment? Because we think it's different, but is it?
Well, I say this about the younger people now, and I'm generalizing. That's always dangerous because there's always exceptions, but I see more of an entitlement mentality out there. You owe me type of thing. Where when I grew up, you didn't see that. People were
willing to do anything.
You worked hard and you just did whatever it took to be successful. You didn't expect anybody to give you anything. I mean, I started my company in 1982. Beth, with $2,000, and I tell people I was either too dumb or too naive to know that wasn't enough money. But if I'd have waited for the perfect time, I would have never started it.
Yes, exactly. And I remember my first executive job that I had. I was given a title and a business card, and I had risen above in authority over people that had been my peers. And I was so frustrated because they didn't treat me like I was the boss. And it was a hard lesson when my boss came to me and he said, no, you earn leadership. A title doesn't make you a leader. It's how you act. It's how you conduct yourself. And it's how you serve others, but also work with others that really made the difference. And it took a long time to earn their respect as a leader and their boss.
Yeah, I remember John Maxwell used to say, if you have to tell the people on your team that you're a leader, you're in trouble. Right. And people ask me all the time, well, are leaders born? Are they created? Can you teach yourself how to be a leadership? And I think it's a little bit of both. Some people have more of an aptitude for leadership and they're just natural leaders, but I've seen others that have learned how to be a leader. But it doesn't matter. What matters is people can see a leader when they see one. They know a leader when they see one, and they know one when they don't see one too.
And one of the things I've been writing about this week is branding. And as you know, you talk about one product over another, and how one packaging may represent, a product similar to another one, but one grabs your attention. I think this is important as Christians. We're the face of Christ. So we are a name brand because we are the face of Christ. How do we as Christians best set ourselves apart when we're out in the world? It's busy, sometimes it's stressful, but yet we're the ones who are supposed to call attention to the Jesus in us. How do we do that as leaders?
Well, I remember being at a Georgia Speakers Association meeting one time, and one of our fellow speakers was doing a talk. His name was Stephen Gower from Toccoa, Georgia. And I'll never forget what he said. He said, what do people see when they see you coming? And leadership, you can talk all day long about leadership, but it's what you do that people pay attention to. It's like telling your kids not to drink and drive, and every time you get behind the wheel, you're drinking something.
Right.
They're not listening to you. They're watching your actions. So as Christians, we have to do what we believe in. We can't just talk about it and then go out. It's easy to be a Christian in church. It's not so easy when you get away from the non-Christian world and you're having to deal with people who aren't of faith. Right. And the best thing they see is your actions. I can cite many people who become Christians because they said, I watched you and I liked what I saw. It wasn't what I said. And I'm a speaker and a writer, but they watch you. So I can write about stuff all day long, but if I'm not living it out, just like in my seminars, I never ask people to do something that I haven't done. Because it comes across as hypocritical. And that's another thing. People are quick to say, well, all you Christians are hypocrites. You name me one organization, business, government, school, that doesn't have some hypocrites. There's hypocrites in every organization. But you don't have to be a hypocrite. Worry about your own little self and live the faith that you say you believe through your actions, not through just your words.
That's a very good point. And that kind of leads to one of the things we all struggle with is balance, and the work-life balance, which is one of the things you write and speak about. I mean, we're all busy. We're all tethered to the phone. It's always beeping. It's always buzzing. How do we establish work and balance? And I want to ask you this question because I've borrowed this line from you numerous times. Fred and I both have. What is the biggest gap in life?
Biggest gap in life, that's one of the things I guess I'm known for. It's the gap between knowing and doing. You've done training before, just like I have. We rarely go out and tell people things they don't know. We may say it in a different way. We may illustrate it with a story or with humor to liven it up, but they probably heard what we said. They know it. But I'll guarantee you there's people sitting in those audiences that know it and aren't doing it. So when I finish my sessions, I hand them a card that says action plan, and I have them write down the top 3 ideas they've got from the training, a deadline for accomplishing it. There's a place to check it off. And then the last column is impact. And that is what happened as a result of doing this. Now, as far as the balance, I burned out so badly in 1982 that I actually quit my job and didn't work for 5 months. I'd been thinking about starting my business, but every time I'd think about it, I'd get cold feet or get nervous. And so I just needed time to get away. I'd been working long hours and I was burned out every way except physically. I was still running and staying in shape, but I was burned out spiritually, mentally, emotionally. And that 5 months was the best 5 months of my life, even though my savings account was dwindling. And at the end of that 5 months, that's when I started my company on that $2,000. I had more set aside, but I spent it that summer because I wasn't working. And what I realized is burnout is optional. You control your life. Now, people talk about time management all the time. Really, you can't control time. Tomorrow's going to come whether you control it or not. What you control is yourself. It really should be self-management, not time management. And decide, it's funny, people make time for what's important. People say to me, well, how do you have time to go to church? How do you have time to exercise? How do you time? You make time. And if I have to get up early, I get up early. If you're in a job where you absolutely have no balance, maybe you're in the wrong job. Now, I'm not telling people to quit their job. It's better to have a job you don't like than no job at all. But, I got all my high school friends are retired now. And the most common phrase is, I couldn't wait to retire. I spent 35 years and I hated my job. Why would you spend 35 years hating your job?
Yeah.
And so your choices have a lot to do with your balance. Now, the other thing that I tell people about, there's no such thing as perfect balance. Right. I don't spend as much time with my friends as I do working. I don't spend as much time exercising as I do at church and so forth. It doesn't have to be perfect balance. It just has to be enough. If I go out and exercise three hours a week out of 160 something hours, that still has good returns on it. And so you have to balance it.
Well, and it's that knowing and doing. I love that. We know what to do. It's the matter of actually choosing that which we really do and follow through with, because we're not going to get it all done, but we have to make wise choices. I mean, it really does boil down to personal choice.
Well, I always say my definition of discipline is the ability to change bad habits into good habits. We all have bad habits, but we want to have more good habits than bad habits. If I had a $100 bill for every time somebody said, well, I'm going to start going back to church next week, or I'm going to start exercising next week, and then they don't do it.
Right.
I heard Jeff Henderson say not long ago, he's one of the North Point ministers. He said, commitment will get you to the starting line, but consistency will get you to the finish line.
Yeah.
And I want to get to the finish line. I'm 74 years old and I'm not finished. I'm still on that journey, but that discipline and that commitment and that consistency is what's made the difference in my life. And I haven't done anything anybody else out there couldn't do. It's just a matter of doing the best you can with the skills you have and not making excuses. I always say you're either making excuses or you're executing. Which is it?
Yeah, that's well said. Well, as much as we could talk all day, I want to finish with one question. There used to be a big emphasis on, communication more so than there is today. And I believe that really is one of the things that sets us apart, the ability to communicate clear, whether it be writing, whether it be speaking. And I think today's got a great opportunity for people who really want to hone in on being a skilled, present themselves in a skillful manner. So what are the 3 quick and easy things people can do that help master presenting yourself by communicating who you are and what you want out of life clearly?
I think you keep it simple. I think you keep it focused. You're not all over the place, and you make it action oriented. You know, from listening to Andy Stanley, at the end of his sermons, it's always a call to action. And so it's not enough just to have the content, but communication doesn't have to be complicated. I remember Vince Dooley, the legendary coach of the Green Bay Packers, at the start of training camp, he would stand in front of his football team and he'd hold up a certain object and he would say, "Gentlemen, this is a football." And he said, "We are going to do nothing at training camp except focus on the basics: blocking, tackling, running, throwing, catching." And in communication, it's the same way. What are the basics of communication? Being clear, being simple, gearing it toward action, being focused, not being all over the place. It's just simplicity. And that's what I try to do in all my writing and speaking is keep it clear, because if people don't understand what you're saying, the odds of them doing it are very remote.
Right. That's very well said. Well, we're gonna stop here, but let's say people want to get your book, they want to talk to you about speaking or training or mentoring, bigspeaks.com, correct?
Bigspeaks.com. And also, one thing, I'll ask you the question now, but I know you talk about life on purpose, and I love the fact that you use the word purpose, because words have meaning. A lot of people say mission. It's not the same thing. When I was in the Marines, we went on missions all the time, but they had a start and they had an end. Astronauts go to the moon. It has a start and has an end. They're on a space mission or a diplomatic mission. Purpose is for your entire life. And so people that want to be on purpose need to have a purpose statement. So if they go to my, if they want to email me, I have a formula for actually doing a purpose statement, and they can just email me purpose statement formula, dickbiggs@att.net. And I'll be glad to send it to them. And it can be very helpful in getting more purposeful in life, which is what you talk about, what you encourage all the people that you influence. And it's never too late to be on purpose.
Well, and if you got a purpose statement, then that simplifies, it goes back to the simplification of everything. It helps you to streamline your thinking on, I don't have all these purposes. I'm going in one direction, and the Lord is leading me in that direction, and I can trust him to, open the path to where I'm to go. So I think that
in purpose, Beth, it's the why behind the what. Goals are the what, but purpose is the why. And if you don't get the why right, you're probably not going to get the what's right. And particularly in the Christian life, we've got to know why we're here, what we're called to do. And then generally we set our goals accordingly so that they're good goals and worthwhile goals, and we leave a good legacy. That's what I want to do. I want to leave a legacy that's helped other people and influenced people. And I know you're doing the same thing with your work, and I appreciate it.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for being with us. We'd love to have you back. It's been great. We could sit here and talk for so long because I love so many of your topics. But all of your 6 books, I know we've read 2 of them, so they're very wonderfully written, and they're right on target. So if anyone wants to get those, we've got your website listed up there. But we'll definitely have you back. Thank you so much for being with us, and we're going to post this, and we'll also send you an email copy of it. But hopefully we've had a lot of people, and we'll keep it posted and keep it running. So thank you.
Thank you, Beth, and tell Fred I said hi.
I will. You tell Judy the same. We'll talk soon.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.